Welcome back to The Grind. In this video, we are going to talk about runes and glyphs, which are for your dragons as well as your base. If you go over to this tab here, this part of the building, and click on the rune vault, you can look at all the runes you have available. You can categorize them based on ones for your dragons or ones for your buildings, and even the rarity of them. Now, one thing I do want to preface before getting into this is if you are new to the game, runes and glyphs are incredibly difficult to obtain. You can't simply decide that this week you are going to farm a bunch of glyphs and runes because there's just not easy access to them. The ways you get runes and glyphs are a variety, but not that simple. You can get them from, for example, the dragon runes. You can get from the seasoned dragon lines. You get specific to those dragons, but you can also use them on other dragons, which are beneficial for one of the stats usually, such as the dragon's HP or attack. Usually it's class specific, and we can go look at one of the dragons that has that. For example, Calivor, you can see the legendary rune of Demise has decreased dirge cooldown. That is a spell that is specific to this dragon. I could put this on another hunter and get the 4% hunter attack, but I would get no benefit from dirge. There are some dragons that do share the same spells, and so those would carry over. Now, another way to get them is from scoring high in events, but as a new player, you are not going to be scoring high enough to get the good runes or glyphs from them. And personally, I myself have even very rarely gotten good runes that I actually want to use because the really good stuff really comes at the very, very high reward milestones, which I never end up going to. The other thing that you can get runes and glyphs from is silver chests. Now, the problem with silver chests is you do not really get a lot of these from your typical play. If you are very efficient at farming chests, and I do have a chest farming video, so you can go take a look at that if you would like. But the chest drops typically are not very good. So this one just gave some rune dust. And I'm not going to open very many of them because, it really just gives you really bad runes. And if you want to put some low level runes or glyphs on your dragons, it will definitely help a little bit, but it will not make that significant of a difference. The problem with silver chests is the drops are just so poor. They haven't updated them in a really long time, so you get all these terrible runes and glyphs that really aren't going to do much for your dragon or your base, and these ones that are actually somewhat decent are actually really challenging to get. They're very, very spread out, and in order to actually get them, you have to open hundreds and hundreds of silver chests. And there are a few very valuable runes in the game that most players hunt for years and maybe have one or two. I don't even have the most rare one in the game, and it only comes from one specific event. And to guarantee that you get it, you have to save up over 1,000 silver chests to make sure you can complete the entire sequence of chests drops to get that one rune that you're looking for. I know players who have spent hundreds of silver chests in that event and still missed it. So it's not a reliable source of runes and glyphs. Now, don't worry, because just because you can't get the runes and glyphs does not mean you're not going to be effective in the game. Most of my dragons, I actually don't fully put runes on. This one is one of the few that I've mostly runed. I did fully rune Calivor, and Housing is basically fully runed as well, but I only did this within the past several months, and this is one of my favorite and most effective dragons, and I just threw on a couple lower rarity like the Rage Glyph and the Legendary Rage Glyph, and then just his basic ones that come in the line except for the Mythic Rage at the top. And for the most part, like for example, Nocturne. I still use Nocturne a lot, and I haven't even fully runed Nocturne. Most of my dragons, I don't fully rune with good runes and glyphs. And these few dragons that I actually did put a lot of runes in, again, like I said, only happened recently because I ended up gaining a lot of these runes over time, but I've been playing for several years, and I'm well over level 400 at this point. Before that, before level 400, I really never put any runes except the ones that come on the dragon, and I didn't always even do that, but I was still able to use the dragon very effectively. What is more important is the rider that you have and the gear that you have. And I did put out a video on this as well, so check that out for details. But the rider and the gear are more important than the runes in most cases, except for the runes can give you rage and ammo, which and other benefits to spells, which is useful, but not a game changer in most cases. The other thing that is most valuable is practice and skill. If you're better with the dragon, you really don't need the runes and glyphs, and I never felt at a disadvantage because I didn't have the runes or glyphs. But now let's get into it. So I already kind of mentioned the several ways that you can get the runes and glyphs, and if you look at the runes and glyphs, let's look at dragon ones first. Most of the ones that you get from the silver chests are going to be these common, rare, and epic ones. You'll get some scattered legendary ones, and that will help on your dragons as well. But if you look at it, at level 1 has 100 HP. This one only has 300 HP. And when you consider a piece of gear is giving you on one piece at max level about 20% HP or attack depending on the one you're looking at. What is beneficial is when it has additional stats for spells such as invincibility duration, or if it has increased rage. These are the runes that are actually very valuable to have on your dragons, and even the ones that are of the epic or rare will still be a little bit beneficial. Unfortunately, I'm not able to find one right now, but you can use those to get a little bit of added benefit to your dragon, and it's not going to be a game changer going from an epic to a legendary. You're not likely to notice a significant difference. But once you're high level and have access to them all, of course, having a fully runed out dragon will show some benefit, and at the very top end gameplay, it will be a little bit more important. But for the vast majority of players, it's not something to fuss too much about. Now, you can also look at building runes and glyphs, and they give things like HP and attack to your flax or storm towers. They can give attack speed bonuses as well. And if you look at the runes that I have on mine, I have been lucky enough to collect the exotic runes and glyphs that come from the limited time branches in the seasons. So this is actually a newer thing that has become available where you can spend sigils during the season to get an exotic glyph or rune for mostly it's been flax so far. So that is something to keep an eye on if you are higher level and determined to get some for your base. But so far there have not been none of these for dragons. And when you're deciding what runes to use, you really have to think about what is most valuable for your dragon or for your base. For me, it's HP all around, and then specifically my ice flak, my dark flak are the main ones, as well as the storm tower. And that's just how I have it set up right now. As far as dragons go, when you look at what's most important for a dragon like housing relies on ammo and a little bit of rage, but mostly ammo and attack. And so most of my runes are focused on hunter attack and ammo. When you look at a dragon like Calivor, for example, or Morak, they primarily focus on the need for rage. Morak will not benefit much from attack because his invoke shot deals an insane amount of attack already, and so he primarily will benefit from more rage to cycle the spells better, as well as HP, so that if you take a hit, he'll still survive. And then, of course, when you have specifically for the warrior class, most of the time you want HP runes and glyphs because the spells will deal more damage with HP, and then you can survive longer as well. And then it's hit or miss with dragons like Krelos. Sorcerers in general tend to benefit more from having HP so they can survive longer, and a majority of the spells will scale off of HP. For Krelos specifically, one of the attacks is based on attack, so I do have an attack glyph on here just to give a slight added benefit. I actually have 2 of them, but that 6% attack bonus is not really that significant. And if you look at the rider gear stats, the sorcerer attack and dragon attack from the from the rider and gear is giving me already almost 100% bonus. So that extra 6% from the runes is really not that significant. And so that's what it comes down to. It does give some added benefits. Primarily the rage is a nice one to have. And then the extra HP and attack do make a difference. But for the most part, the runes and glyphs are not a game changer for newer players. So I would recommend focusing more on riders and gear, and then letting your runes and glyphs accumulate over time until you magically find you have an excess amount of decent runes that you can throw onto your dragons and use for fun. The other thing to note is that you can remove runes and glyphs now with chisels, which are also challenging to obtain, but have become more available recently. The lower the rarity, the cheaper it is to remove. So that's something to consider as well when you're deciding which ones to put on which dragons. If you're not sure if you're going to keep it there long term, you might want to avoid putting it on there for a short period of time until you're sure that's what you want to do. Because if you change your mind, it will cost a lot of chisels to remove, like 100 chisels for a mythic glyph, when an epic only costs 10 to remove. So that's all I have for this runes and glyph video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Check out some other videos on gear and riders in the playlists on my channel for more information on that, and I will see you in the next video.